As more and more technology reaches the battlefield, so do the processes associated with them. In this edition of Actionable Intelligence, I speak to Defense News editor Mike Gruss about our recent Removing Stovepipe series from our sister publication, C4ISRnet. Mike, welcome. We've been doing the Removing Stovepipe series with C4ISRnet. What's the Removing Stovepipe series all about?
It's really an opportunity to talk about this problem that we hear about all the time in technology, which is just that the information folks need is stovepiped, and that from a very simple level, one organization may have an office and another organization can't get access to it, or doesn't even know it exists, which is an even worse case scenario. And so it's how do we kind of connect all these dots? And that's what we're doing with the series.
And in one of the latest ones, you spoke with Donald Coulter, a senior advisor with the Army's Network Cross-Functional Team, who talked about just that, about how removing stovepipes is so important and why it's a big part of Army Futures Command.
How we have to take not only just are two people doing the same thing, and they might be for a very good reason, because we're burning down risk, especially in the science and technology environment. We're trying different approaches to solve the same problems. But we also have to have that visibility because someone may have solved a similar problem, but in a completely different domain. And it's bringing those disparate groups together to really talk through those and identify some opportunities for convergence that's been powerful.
One of the big problems they're solving right now is that of wearable technology. That's a really big thing out on the battlefield. But just as you and I have our devices and our Fitbits and everything, we need to enter passwords and authenticate. Donald, talk to us a little bit exactly about how they're dealing with all that technology on the battlefield.
One of the projects that we're working on here and focusing on is a wearable authentication capability. And what this gives us in a traditional environment or enterprise environment, we have passwords that we have to change every so often, and we have CAD cards or tokens and things, but these can be broken, damaged, lost in an operational environment. And trying to put in a password under stressful conditions with tactical gloves on a tiny keyboard is not an optimal solution. So bringing in that multi-factor authentication based on public key architectures, but enabling it to leverage biometrics and make it easier, reduce the burden on the soldier while making our systems more secure.
Mike, he mentioned biometrics and kind of authentication factors. There were some really interesting ones, including the way people walk. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Sure, and I think he does such a nice job of explaining it, because there are so many days where some of us feel like we're all thumbs, and no matter what you type, it just doesn't line up. And he mentioned that there's that extremely stressful situation you don't want to be in and getting a password wrong. So what DoD officials kind of across the department are doing, including the Army that he mentioned, are kind of looking for these biometric ways to authenticate. In other words, like how can we tell you are you based on something your body's doing? And so one may be your gait, how you walk. Each person kind of has a fingerprint in the types of steps that they take and how their body maybe moves while they're doing that. And so that might be one way to say, like, yes, this is indeed Mike, and we can tell by the way he's walking that this is who he is. Another one might be heart rate. And even another one we've heard, not particularly for the battlefield, but, each person has a typing cadence. So it might be as simple as a typing cadence to know, like, hey, this is indeed Daniel, and it's not someone pretending to be Daniel.
Great, Mike. Thank you. We have a lot more live virtual events coming up featuring some of the best minds in the business. You can see the calendar for all our events and sign up at either defensenews.com or c4isrnet.com. And now for headlines. The French Military Procurement Agency has ordered 300 micro drones from Parrot for reconnaissance and intelligence missions. They'll be used by the conventional and special forces. Each of the 150 systems is comprised of 2 drones, and deliveries will begin in June. And that's just the start. The 5-year contract with a French company covers several hundred drones, the development of adaptations, the maintenance of equipment, software, and operator training. Forces will spend this year honing in on the exact numbers they need, as well as the delivery cadence. That contract is worth more than $36 million. And now down under, Australia has selected Boeing's AH-64E Apache Guardian as its next armed reconnaissance helicopter, replacing its Airbus Tiger fleet under a program to be worth more than $3 billion. That's according to an Australian government announcement. The selection of the Apache follows a request for information in July 2019 they called for 29 helicopters, with 24 to be based at a single location with 2 operational armed recon helicopter squadrons. The other 5 will be used for training. US combat jets and a destroyer are to join the British Royal Navy's new aircraft carrier on its maiden operational deployment to the Asia-Pacific region later in 2021. The British Ministry of Defense announced that British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace and US Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller co-signed a joint declaration approving the deployment of US Marines and US Navy assets as part of a carrier strike group led by the HMS Queen Elizabeth. US assets attached to the carrier strike group will include a detachment of Marine F-35Bs and a destroyer, the Sullivans. That's it for your defense news headlines this week. When we come back, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack gives us tips on the ins and outs of business loans. And later, an inside look at how MREs are tested to make sure they're providing the nutrients troops need.